like heart and soul has always been democratizing real estate, whether it's for investment purposes, living purposes, or building purposes. We're a real estate crowdfunding platform. And right now our main focus is working with nonprofits that have land, think like churches, hospitals, and they want to use their excess land to develop and build affordable housing. They can raise capital through our platform by using donations, debt, or equity. The churches are, I think they're like the 5th largest landowner in the world. We thought like, okay, how can we use the community aspect of the church and have the land and then have the affordable housing as well?
Welcome to Canada Now. I'm Ashley Smith, and every week we dig into the bold ideas, real stories, and fresh perspectives shaping Canada's future. Let's get into it. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Canada Now, where we unpack bold ideas and start thinking about the next chapter in Canada through an unapologetically Canadian lens. I am so happy to be here today with our guest, Laura Fortey, someone I've known for several years through a variety of things, not super well. So I'm actually really excited to dive into the last few years. Laura Fortey is an entrepreneur, mentor, and community builder. She's a 3-time founder with over 2 decades of experience in the Canadian entrepreneurial ecosystem. Through her company, Reitium, she's lived every side of the growth journey, from pitching investors and scaling teams to leading with purpose in fast-moving environments. She's led experiential learning programs, developed leadership frameworks, and built thriving communities that empower founders to grow with clarity and confidence. Known for creating honest, energizing spaces, including sold-out events that bring hundreds of founders together, Laura's work is rooted in connection, creativity, and impact. Welcome to Canada Now, Laura. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. That was a great intro. I sound like an awesome person.
You do, and you are. And you know, we've had a conversation before. I'm not going to overly plug my podcast From the Blockchain, which you can go and listen to our episode from a few years ago. But I think that's the time where we got to really dive into some of the things you were doing with Reitium at that time. And since then, just given the nature of my life, I've been kind of in and out. But I feel like anytime I poke my head up and go to an event, there's Laura. Like, there you are. I didn't expect you, and I don't know why. And it's great, but we haven't had the best opportunity to like properly catch up and see what's going on. So I'm hoping to go into a few things in this conversation today, a bit about your entrepreneurial journey, a bit about some of the companies you've worked with, in particular Reitium, and then a little bit about how you're looking at the entrepreneurial and professional landscape. I've taken a pretty good look at that over the last year myself for a variety of reasons, which we'll get into. It's just really interesting. And I think you and I have a lot of similar vibes and similar takes and similar ways of looking at things. So I'm excited to get into it. Let's fill in some of the gaps for the audience. Can you tell me a little bit more about the significant things that have brought you to where you are today? Like, do you see yourself mainly as a founder? What do you label yourself when you talk to people and that you meet off the street?
Good question. I would say founder, entrepreneur, business owner. I'm just going to like speak from the heart today. And I'm feeling where I'm at today, I think is a result of pushing back on a lot of things that have, a lot of the industry that has been labeled or laid out a certain way. Mm-hmm. I faced burnout a couple years ago and really like hit almost rock bottom with the company. The company is doing well, but it was just like a lot. And I found that, you know, working in tech and working in very male-dominated tech industry, in fintech, real estate, prop tech, all of that, I just lost myself. Who was I? And like, how could I be a woman in that space? And how could I show up? So I feel that the last few years, I've been really like clawing back out of that and rewriting the narrative of like, what does that mean for me? And how do I want this to be seen? Mm-hmm. And how do I want to show up going forward? Like, I believe in work-life balance. I believe that we are better founders when we do take care of ourselves first as well. Mm-hmm. When our mind is clear and our body is strong and all those kind of things. Maybe it's the circles that I'm in, but I see a lot of that narrative coming out now. Mm-hmm. But it definitely hasn't been there the last like 20 years that I've been in business and running companies. So
Let's unpack that a little bit. But first, can you help me provide the audience with a bit of an overview of what is Reitium, as like the primary company that you're working with and on today?
Yeah, so Reitium, I'm the co-founder and COO of Reitium. It's almost 8 years ago that we started it, which is wild. Pandemic and lots of lives have happened in between, all of this ups and downs, crazy stuff. But we're a real estate crowdfunding platform. And right now our main focus is working with nonprofits that have land, think like churches, hospitals, that kind of thing. And they want to use their excess land to develop and build affordable housing. So they can raise capital through our platform by using donations, debt, or equity, just depending on whatever they would like to look at. And then creating housing, which is obviously a huge issue. And, the churches are I think they're like the 5th largest landowner in the world. And so it's like, how can we reuse those spaces? Because a lot of people are moving away from the church and churches are being sold to developers and bulldozed and towers are going up. So yes, we need the housing, but also if you remove the community aspect, it's never going to be replanted, right? So we thought okay, how can we use the community aspect of the church and have the land and then have the affordable housing as well?
So that's really interesting. And I'm sort of surprised that this strategy hasn't been taken on in maybe a more significant way before you came along. So we don't need to get super into the weeds, but maybe what makes this possible? How does Reitium provide a solution for these types of nonprofits?
Last year, my business partner Thomas and I were actually at an event called Reimagining Church Land. And there was a few hundred people in the room, churches and developers, et cetera, et cetera. And so they asked the question in the room of who here is the capital partner? And nobody put up their hand except for us. So everyone in that room could look to use and work with us. So what's happening now is churches are struggling. They're on average not business people. They don't know what to do with the land. They have the land. And then developers are coming in and they know what they do, which is, develop and maybe bulldoze the church or maybe lease the land back to the church so the church can still operate and they develop the land. So how we are different is we allow the church to keep owning the church and the land and then raise the capital to do the development project, and then they actually earn money from the rental income. So the church keeps ownership of the land versus selling it to a developer. That's kind of the differentiator. It does exist. Of course, people have done it, but it doesn't exist at scale. Right. So some churches have done it and reached out to different people or raised their own capital, but there's a lot of people that are very interested to keep churches around.
And then also having the actual technical mechanisms and the platform to, I guess, facilitate.
That's it.
The coming together.
Yeah, exactly. So if you think of GoFundMe, which is a donations platform, so churches as a nonprofit, they can accept donations. And a lot of people would like to donate to either offset taxes or they want to give back because it's part of their plan. And so they can actually give to these projects, and it's maybe they're not religious, but most people do believe in housing and affordable housing especially.
Yeah, especially in Canada. Hosting this show and having real estate and housing being sort of like a common theme through different guests. It's a funny topic because it's a huge unlock in terms of wealth and wealth creation, but it's also can be a very divisive issue because of the housing problem. And here, especially in British Columbia, clearly land is a problem. So it's rare to find undeveloped or underdeveloped land that can actually be built. Are you active in primarily in British Columbia, or where does Reitium work?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Could be the US, could be across Canada. Mostly focusing on that. We have a lot of people in Latin America that are very interested in this as well. So we're talking to people over there. We could operate anywhere, really. We're the tech platform. So where the deals are based on regulation, based on where the people live is obviously what we need to follow.
I do want to go back to sort of your opening comments as a founder and as a busy entrepreneur. Ever since I kind of did my deep dive into Web3 and became more familiar with sort of startup culture, tech culture, it's this taking idea and bringing it to real life and how to make those leaps and know when to pivot, know when to change, and know when to pursue and keep moving forward and building momentum. I'm just wondering, what kind of lessons have you gained or learned over the last few years? Because I know when we spoke, even in the last conversation we had on air, there was a slightly different direction that Reitium was going. And I think the biggest difference now is that you've really leaned into the nonprofit as a primary customer.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about that, taking idea to actual activation and then knowing when to, make changes to make it work.
Yeah. I mean, we all wish we had a crystal ball, right? We all wish that we knew exactly the right changes to make at the right time. It's kind of a number of things. It's like, do we feel like we're consistently fighting an uphill battle? Is regulation not there yet? People wanted to tokenize properties, and that's how we started the company. We're going to tokenize real estate almost 8 years ago. And, it's not really legal in Canada or the States. There's a lot of regulation. It's not there yet. We were too soon with that thinking. So then you have to go, okay, what can we actually do? How can we pivot? Who actually needs this, and who can we actually work with, who's ready to go right away? That's the other thing, is the timing of the market, right?
Yeah.
And thankfully, both Thomas and I are agile and ready to pivot and don't hold the ego of, but we're this, we have to stick in this path. So we still have our white label. We still white label our software to customers across Canada, exempt market dealers. So that's still happening on the back end. But our front facing, like our heart and soul has always been democratizing real estate.
Yeah.
Whether it's for investment purposes, living purposes, or building purposes. It's like the same kind of theory. So leaning into now the building of it and creating homes and opportunities for people. And that's the biggest issue that we're seeing across Canada, right? There's not enough housing. There's not enough affordable housing. And we found such a gap because all of these churches have so much land. And so how can we actually marry the two? So I think agility and like knowing, and we don't always know when to pivot. Sometimes we hold on to things too long or do it too soon, but trying to time that market as well. So I think we have had so much incredible feedback and reception, and we're talking to a lot of governments and mayors and governors and people who really need this, and they can actually help us create policy quicker to build these affordable housing units wherever they might be. So that's another piece, is working with what's already there instead of trying to change regulation or do this or fight against that. Like, tech is move fast and break things, right? So it's kind of that. But we do need to follow rules too. Looking backwards, it's like, okay, it feels like it took a long time. But then if you think in pandemic and you think other things that happened and regulatory stuff, and we're actually quite far ahead because of everything that we've learned and everything we've done. Of course, there's room in the market for tons of competitors, of course, and that would be great for more people to do this as well. But we have definitely that first mover advantage because we've kind of done all the things and we've built the tech for it.
That has me wondering about, blazing trails and kind of walking into unknown territory, not just with a solution, but how that solution is kind of provided. So bringing that tech side. And you mentioned COVID. And you were kind of maturing in the thick of it, like your company was maturing in the thick of it. And I'm just thinking for builders and entrepreneurs, and by builders, I mean business builders and entrepreneurs who are listening, how have you found navigating trailblazing in a time, like obviously there was a period of time where there wouldn't have been a lot of in-person opportunities to go and meet, investors, to go and meet people that can maybe help guide the technology in a more streamlined direction, et cetera. Now things have changed a lot. How did you navigate that part then? And then what are you prioritizing now to try to build on and take the next step?
Honestly, I would say like mentorship has been our biggest helper. We've done a lot of accelerators. And having the people who have done it before and not necessarily done exactly what we've done, but who are in the ecosystem, who know prop tech, who know fintech, who can like communicate, understand what you're doing, and who know how hard it is to raise capital, and they support you anyway. Having advisors who have exits, who know the industry. Now that we're into the nonprofit and the faith world with working with churches, we have a whole faith advisory board now. So we don't know, Thomas and I, we're both born and raised in the church, but we're not avid churchgoers, all the time. But we don't really know necessarily that industry so well. So working with our faith board, we're very much business people, which the churches need, but we also need that other side too. So I would say like mentors, advisors, and the humility of knowing that we don't know it all and just being humble and agile in that. And working with Accelerators has literally been the best thing for us because we get put in rooms, we get put in front of investors, even online, flying in person could be, but the access, it's very hard to get things done by sitting behind a computer at your desk. You have to leave the house. You have to go on the road. You have to be in the rooms. You have to be in person, right? It's so different being fully embodied in those rooms, getting inspiration. We always talk about serendipity. Like Thomas is actually away right now having some big meetings over in Hong Kong. And it's like, if he's sitting in the desk in Vancouver, it's not going to be the same as being in person.
Yeah.
So I would really stress that too, is like go to all the networking events. Thomas and I started creating networking events this year. We do them almost every month. And we've had hundreds of people come out and say it's the best networking event they've been to. There's no panels, there's no pitches, there's nobody selling you anything. Literally getting cool people in a room and letting the magic happen there.
I really appreciate that take. You know, you're young. You've been in business for 20 years, but you're young. I don't think I really understood or realized how many opportunities did exist in Canada, for example. Until a few years ago, I didn't really understand this culture or ecosystem around accelerators, as you mentioned. And so maybe we can unpack that just a little bit. Did you know these things existed? Like, how did you discover them? And then how would you encourage other people to find opportunities that might fit whatever they're looking to do?
That's a great question. I don't come from the tech world in the last 20 years. I've been in the tech world for the last 8 years. So yeah, before that, I would always kind of find coaches or business mentors, that kind of thing. I was more in like the solopreneur world, like running a marketing agency. It's similar but different, but I've always known like having, as a kid, I had sports coaches. I had guides guiding me that weren't my parents or weren't people super close to me. And it's the same as this now. It's like, you know, you can't think that you know everything because of course you don't. So aligning yourself with people who are also in business, like yourself, like us, right? So having other people who are on the same trajectory as you, who maybe know a little bit more than you in certain things and maybe a little bit less than you in other things. So that would be like a lateral mentor that's like basically community. And then it's kind of just happened and evolved as we've grown and researched things, and accelerators reach out to us and tell us, and we heard about Y Combinator and we're like, what is this? And so we just started trying it and dabbling. And I think we've done 5 or 6 accelerators now. So they've all offered different things. There was 2 that they asked us to relocate to the US. They were through universities. So we got access to all the alumni and we got access to being on boots on the ground in America, which you don't get to do as a Canadian very often. So we spent a year down in the States, 6 months in LA and 6 months in Arizona. So understanding the different ecosystems and different thought patterns of Americans as well. While we didn't get investment from those accelerators, the learnings were very helpful as well. So community, brand building, understanding different ecosystems, all of that kind of stuff. And then bringing it back to here. So that's how we host some cool events, because we learned a lot about different events in LA. LA is pretty cool. I think sometimes Vancouver tries to be LA, but you know, we bring a lot from what we learn on the road. And recently this summer we were in San Francisco, and just the highest caliber events at Salesforce. And that's literally the top of the top when it comes to the tech world. And to rub shoulders and be in those rooms and then take what we learned and grow the ecosystem here. That's the goal of a lot of people in this city. And I think cities all across Canada is I don't want to really move to the States. I want to stay here. However, what can we do to continue to build the ecosystem here? How can we get a tech hub? Unfortunately, Vancouver is the only city across the country that doesn't have a tech hub, which we need. If anybody's listening, we need that. But how can we get all of us to build that ecosystem stronger, better? And so we get eyeballs from the world on us here in Canada.
I do feel there's I'm feeling the energy. I'm noticing certain people kind of popping up as sort of leaders in trying to curate events and bring people together. And hopefully, with Web Summit as an example, coming here, this will be nurtured. And over the next few years, the narrative will change and people will see it more as the opportunity to have that hub. So fingers crossed, and everyone, let's all engage. I think we all kind of got a little lazy too from COVID a little bit.
Totally. Yeah.
Like we got comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the accelerators a little bit. I think I knew you were participating in some things in the United States, but I hadn't really thought about that as a Canadian founder, that those sorts of opportunities might just exist. I have heard from some folks generally that they felt they needed to start navigating the different opportunities because some are better than others, and maybe it's only through experience that you figure that out. But I'm just wondering that if you were starting from scratch today, are there any like 1, 2, or 3 things you would be thinking about if you were considering participating in, whether local or abroad, some sort of incubator or accelerator program?
I would definitely suggest to do it abroad.
Okay.
Because when you're local, you still go home, you still have your friends, you still all the normal things. But when we were living in LA, I literally had no friends, no family, me and Thomas and our partners living in a house. And so literally all day, all night, all weekend, we're doing work.
Yeah.
Which did burn me out a little bit in the end, but it accelerates you to actually build the ecosystem and actually build the community. And if you're going to try to go for dinner with someone, it's going to be someone new. It's going to be someone in the ecosystem. It's not going to be same old friends or family that you always live around. And I think the same for events. I was actually at a conference this weekend. It was local. And I actually said to my partner, I said, next time this event comes, I'm going to stay in a hotel close to the event and stay in the energy. Because then you come home and you cook dinner and you get in different energy. Yeah. And it's so different when you're in that like incubator. That's what it is, right? Mm-hmm. It's like to be incubated in a small time frame, going there, moving there. I mean, I wouldn't move there for like a year, let's say, but a 6-month or 3-month pressure cooker, a lot of things are going to happen and very, very quickly. So we did one, let's call it local accelerator, Montreal, but it was during the pandemic. So we didn't live there, go there. Yeah, we met the people once or twice in person, but it was nothing compared to the accelerators we did in person. And not as good, I would say. The accelerator itself was good, but the being together in the room. And then we just finished the Reach Accelerator, which we saw each other on the road lately. But what I liked with Reach was every month we were somewhere. We were in Calgary, then we were in Toronto, then we were here. So we were getting together, even though we were still at home doing it from abroad. It was like, now you're on the road, and they did a 3-day road show with you in each place. Yeah. Which was really cool and really helpful, because then you actually get to meet people and be in that ecosystem.
That's cool. I think that's a good lesson too for people listening, that if they want to be build something where folks from abroad are coming and staying here. How interesting is that? Especially right now, because it's an interesting time. I think there's a lot of people who might be inclined to come to Canada,
totally,
and do some of that. So that's really neat. So I do want to talk a little bit about, because you open with the comment about burnout. It's a long journey, obviously. If not just being an entrepreneur, but trying to build a business that becomes something that has meaningful impact. And I mean, I'm not quite sure what your long-term goals are with Reitium in terms of like the status of the company and the scale you want to build it to. But tell me a little bit about being 8 years in, and as a co-founder, COO, and someone that I know has a lot of ideas and a lot of energy. Like, where are you right now, more from a personal perspective, looking at sort of that commitment and what you want to do in your life?
There's kind of a few different buckets in tech, right? It's like, the 1 to 3 year, just starting out. And then when you get to the 8-year mark, they're like, okay, when are you going to sell? It's like on average, it's like a 10-year, like 7 to 10 years when people look to start to sell. So some people have asked us, some people have approached us, some people have offered us to buy, to M&A, all these kind of things. Obviously, the time doesn't feel right just yet, especially as we're gearing up with the nonprofit side. So again, if I had a crystal ball, that would be amazing. But I kind of think, okay, when Reitium, either when I exit and Reitium's still going, or when we sell the company, whatever that looks like, what am I doing? So I started thinking this about 2 years ago when I was burning out, basically. And I thought, okay, so who am I without Reitium? What's my identity? Okay, I'm a female founder, but then now let's say Reitium's just gone for whatever reason. So I started to come back to myself, created my own podcast, started hosting events, building my own community, my own network, really mentoring people. I'm an advisor to a few different companies. So really building up my own repertoire outside of I'm this one thing, because it's all connected anyways.
Yeah.
And if I'm mentoring and I'm podcasting over here, it's going to help the company. And I think gone are the days when eat, sleep, breathe, just your startup only. It's the only thing you ever do. No hobbies. You can't have a dog. You can't do this. You can't cook dinner. Like, I've heard investors talk about that. And like, I do not subscribe to that. I think that is, and I get it in the first couple of years. I get it as you're building. I get it as you're growing. There's some point where you need to actually get paid a wage, proper wage. And actually be able to do things and have a family and be able to have a vacation. You know, I took a week off over Thanksgiving last week or whenever it was. And these are important things because they recharge you. Yeah. And then you come and you are a better founder and you can do things in a smaller time frame, right? I don't know. I think the narrative is changing overall. We talked before we hit record, we talked a little bit about fractional work. And I see this really gaining a lot of traction, especially for women. Yeah. So it's kind of like advisory in a way, like consulting in a way. But, you know, if you're a CFO and you have your company or work for a company and you want to have multiple projects, like being a fractional CFO, it's like, I think it's awesome because I'm a multi-passionate person and I have a lot of interest in a lot of things and a lot of energy. And especially when you're building something, a lot of times it's build, stop. And why are you stopping? Whether it's regulation, whether there's a capital constraint, whether you're still building and the tech team are just focusing on that. But there's often like these peaks and valleys. You're waiting for the clients, you're waiting for the customers. So it's like in that meantime, what else can we be doing? Whether we're taking courses, whether we're advising other companies, whether we have fun podcasts on the side. But I really see it's all part of the puzzle.
I'm really resonating with this. This episode is not about me, but I'm going to share a little bit. So, you know, having come from a background being a realtor for, you know, well over a decade and a half, and then having kind of squirreled down into tech and then having a son and then him having some health stuff, it was weird because, you know, my real estate career was my identity. And then starting to think about professionally, what do I want to do if that's not what I want to do anymore? Looking at the job market, which by the way, like I haven't been employed for 20 years. And the job market is changing so fast. I think I'm very employable. I don't know that I want to be employed, but I'm like on paper, I don't know how employable I am, right? Like, like I know that my skill set and experience, et cetera, but you go on LinkedIn and you look at all these things and it's like, and meanwhile, everyone's getting fired from all like, or downsizing is happening and we know the world is changing. So it's like, how do you prepare yourself for a world that's changing? And how do you position yourself to be a go-to person for a variety of things? And so it was actually, as I was looking at that, where I stumbled upon this idea of fractional executive roles. And I was surprised as I started talking about it, how few people had heard about it. I felt like if it was something I wanted to explore with companies, it's something I had to bring to them as an opportunity rather than something they were thinking about. Because clearly nimble companies, they can hire more leadership if they're able to hire someone for 10 hours a week. Yeah. Better quality leadership that can maybe focus more on performance rather than like hours in a seat or whatever. And sorry, I'm sort of explaining this because I'm hoping the audience can kind of get a picture if this isn't something that they've heard about. And even for people as their kids are maturing and getting into the professional landscape to think about this. And so you're talking about repertoire of interests and areas of work. And the term that I've discovered is this idea of a portfolio career. So you have different revenue streams, whether that's advisory, some fractional roles, and coaching, different things. And I thought that's really neat. And it is being led, I think, by women. Anyways, sorry, I'm kind of taking it from you, but I'm echoing what you're saying because I think it's so interesting. And I've only met a few people in real life that are pursuing this kind of divergent path, I guess. So I just want to give you kudos for that. But also, I'm curious, it seems like a great opportunity for somebody who has a background and a proven track record, proven leadership. I'm assuming people come to you for advisory. Do you seek out opportunities on like outbound, or is it mostly inbound?
Yeah, inbound.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that honestly, this is going to sound so cliche, but honestly, it's sharing online.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean like posting your weekend on social media, but sharing your thoughts, sharing your thought leadership. My partner had a health thing. We kind of talked about that a little bit lately. And I started sharing a few things on LinkedIn of all places, because it's like, don't share your personal life on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just like, you know what? Here's what I'm just going to start sharing, and not super personal stuff, but like, here's how it relates to my life, where I have disappeared, the business world, that kind of thing, whether it's related to personal health stuff or even networking. I just started sharing more from the heart, and the reception that I've got, I think we kind of try to make ourselves inhuman and like move away from the humanness of life when we're being founders. It's like, okay, I'm just this professional and this whole polished thing. And, you know, a lot of women are leading the future. I think the future is feminine and fractional and honest and authentic. And I know a lot of those words are like, you know, hot topic words right now, especially authenticity. But I think people are craving it, especially as AI is more and more and more. Like, we all are using AI to some degree, but now knowing like what is actually human, what makes us human is the opposite of AI, really. And so if we're these polished faces on LinkedIn, then we're almost like robotic in a way, and kind of AI in a way anyway. So it's like, I think people are craving that humanity. And that's why I believe the future is feminine, because women are also allowing and holding space for men to be more in their flow. You know, you see a lot of biohacking stuff coming out that's becoming big. The hot cold, it's becoming the norm. That's where people are meeting each other now. And networking is like walk-in network instead of like have a business meeting, right? It's more casual. So body movement, this kind of thing, getting out of being so stuck in our heads all the time. And I think, again, it has to be the whole picture. And you have to have fun at home with your family and your pets and everything like that. You have to have your holidays and your vacations and your Christmas traditions. Like, these things are what make us attached to being human.
I even think about from an innovation perspective, it's like, if you're driving so hard towards one goal, and that being, for example, a company that you're building, and you're so hyper-focused on that one thing, it's easy to miss all the change and all the things that are developing around you. And so it's almost like you need to give yourself that permission to be touching and seeing and experiencing.
But that's it. And that's how, when you are agile, so I'm sure you know the story of Slack and how they started. And they started as a video game development company. And they had an internal messaging tool where they would chit chat with their team, which became Slack because that's what people wanted to buy. So they kind of put developing video games, which is their passion, on hold. And they saw, and they didn't have the ego to be like, no, we're a video game development company. We only do that. They're like, no, this is what people want to buy. Well, let's lean into that, become $1 billion company. And now we can develop video games, right? So it's being not so attached to the outcome of like, no, we're only doing this. So able to see what's actually working. But that only happens if you lift up your head and see the periphery and do the networking things and be open to different ideas and possibilities and synchronicities and all that kind of stuff.
And it's okay if the answer is no, but I am curious because you've experienced, you know, tight-knit builder communities in the US through the accelerator incubator programs you've done. You're talking about this sort of cultural shift almost in business of like maybe a bit of a change in priorities. Do you see that across the board, or do you see this, do you feel there's a bit of Canadian culture almost? Like we're not as diehard, I think, here, or at least that's how we're perceived sometimes. Canadians, it's like less about the like bottom line and less about, you know, maybe slightly less capitalist in nature. But do you see a wave all across the board in terms of just the general tech landscape and startup landscape in terms of making sure you're prioritizing yourself and your like wellness as you're building your business?
Yeah, I think it's actually bleeding over from the younger generation.
Yeah.
Because, you know, maybe it was before or after the pandemic or during, but they're like, don't want to come to the office. I want to wear sweatpants, like why are we spending 40 hours a week? Like the younger generation's really driving it. Even our generation, our parents' generation worked the same job forever, right? So now we change a lot. We do a lot of different things. The younger generation is like 2 to 3 years and then they move on. So I see that they're driving a lot of this. Like the sober movement is huge. So people aren't really wanting to go to bars. They're wanting to do different things like cold plunging, meditation. Like this is becoming very normalized. And I think they're driving a lot of this. And the rest of us are kind of like maybe dabbling or seeing it or waking up or being like, well, hang on a minute. How come this 23-year-old is saying this? And like, why am I still feeling this way?
Yeah.
It's like they're allowing us to allow that in a way, to like let go of the reins a bit. And, we live in Vancouver for a reason, for the hiking, for the outdoors, for the nature. And if we can't enjoy that or go camping or do these things, then like, why are we even like living here? And why don't we just move to like downtown Toronto and just work on Bay Street and just not have any fun? So I do think it's actually like a Western world phenomenon, like all over the States. I think this is happening too. And it's the pushback from the younger generation, which I'm like so happy for.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing because I've been thinking about that demographic divide. Maybe that's not the right word, but like shift and evolution. And in terms of this podcast audience, I'm kind of just aware that most listeners currently are probably more around my age, maybe even a bit older. So elder millennial, Gen X, maybe even older. And thinking about where the world is going and thinking about them maybe as parents of kids who are like graduating, university and them trying it as successful, business people as an example. How do they help bring the right lens to future opportunity for their kids if they have such a different experience? And I think natural tendency to kind of push back on maybe some of the ways things are going and not maybe being as in touch even with like how fast things are changing with AI and with the workforce potentially changing so much. So since you're kind of, also an elder millennial, but seeing a lot of these younger builders and entrepreneurs really making their mark, like what kind of advice would you give what kind of advice would you give your younger self if you were starting brand new today as a builder?
That's a great question. I think the cool thing when I started in business, like basically the internet didn't exist. It's just like so long ago.
It was there. It's just no one was using it yet.
It wasn't used in the way that it was like just email basically. But the cool thing is now is like literally you can start a business with no overhead.
Yeah.
So I would just say like start tons of little businesses and just try different things. If you like crafting, go on Etsy. If you like making videos, do some stuff on YouTube. Just like put things out there and don't be afraid. And if you're afraid to put things out there, then get comfortable with doing that.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool to have that accessibility. And I really think that both generations really need each other. Like the older generation really needs the younger generation with their innovation. They grew up with phones. They grew up with internet, like whereas we didn't, right? And then the younger generation really needs the wisdom of the older generation and like people that have been through it and they've been doing this for 30 years and they know the ins and outs and they can kind of guide them along. So I would love to see actually, especially in the tech world, more variation in age. I feel like it's a lot of like 25 to 30 to 40, let's say. And it would be great to bring in a lot more of the even teenager, younger kids, and the older people as well, like the more seasoned people who have done this for so long. And those usually happen to become our advisors, which is great. But it's like really we need people across all the generations. Gen Z and Gen Alpha coming in, they're the ones that like grew up with AI. Like you look at Gen Alpha, like the 11, 12, 13-year-olds, like my nieces and nephews, they're just like, I don't even understand half the things they're doing. And it's just like normal to them. So when they enter the workforce in a few years, like we really need that because our brains are wired in a certain way and so are theirs. And letting go of the ego of, you know better because you're this age or that age. It's more like, well, what do they actually know, and how can we kind of work together? Because we all have different skills and different abilities. So, yeah.
The networking events that you put on, does it cater to that idea at all? Like, are you bringing different generations together? Like, who's coming to your events that you're hosting?
Yeah, not any well, we had a few teenagers at the last one, but yeah, a lot of students. We like students to attend, but just anybody in the tech world. So there's no panels, there's no pitches. It's just getting cool people in a room and letting the magic happen.
Yeah.
I find that even not just Vancouver, but anywhere we go to these tech events, it's often the same thing. It's often the same people on the panels. It's often the same conversation, how to raise money, why it's hard to raise money. Here's the 5 ways to raise money, and whether that works or not, it doesn't always work for people, but shaking it up and just being like, we do a community open mic. So if anybody wants to say anything on the mic, they have 30 seconds, introduce who they are, who they're looking to meet. And we've had many, many people say it's the best event they've ever been to because we just let them guide it and lead it, just getting them in a room. And we've had people hire each other from our events.
That's awesome.
Last one we did sold out. We had 250 people at on Thomas's rooftop.
Cool.
It's got a rooftop patio, and it was just an unbelievable night. And yeah, no expectation. And men and women and different ages and different backgrounds, not just tech, but everyone in business.
I love that. So will I be able to put a link to for people to find these events? Are they invite only, or are they things people can discover?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's on Eventbrite and Luma. We haven't run one since the last one in August, but we'll do one definitely before Christmas.
Okay.
And then we try to do them every month, every 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So
I'll put a link to your LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And then people can follow you and then pay attention to what you're hosting. So that's really cool. Is it hard to raise money?
Yeah. So most capital on average goes to the white man.
Okay.
Women get less than 2%.
Yeah.
And my business partner is Korean. So neither of us on the founding team are a white man. So it's been, I don't like to put this out there that it's more challenging. It's definitely not easy to raise money. But we have seen more challenges because of who we are visibly.
What's your experience, say, aside from that, been just in the Canadian landscape in terms of available capital? Are investors here? Are you finding that it would be there'd be more opportunity to just find money that's coming from the United States, for example? We've
got a lot of people who believed in us who are close to us. So a lot of angels that are friends and family, business associates. Our bigger checks have come from the US. Americans make decisions a lot quicker, and Vancouver people are quite polite. And so they say, yes, I'm interested. And then they ghost. And that's kind of not the best, because it's if you don't want to invest, just say you don't want to invest.
And so would you, if you were advising somebody else going through that experience, would you say persistence is valuable, or would you say just go on to the next person?
It depends. So we had, for example, one guy in the US, he said, yes, I'm interested. And I followed up and I said, okay, you're interested. Here's the term sheet, et cetera, et cetera. And then he ghosted. And I was like, hey, are you interested? Followed up again, didn't answer. And I was like, okay, clearly you're not interested. That's fine. I just want to close this loop. And he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't get back to you. So he did put in a couple $100,000 check. But if I didn't continue saying that, even though I think for me, until they say no, it's still kind of a yes. But at some point, of course, you just get the hint as well. But that's kind of been my tactic is if you're not interested, please just say no. And when I have called that out a few times, it's resulted in a check.
Yeah. Line in the sand.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's just say no, then that's fine. And then I'll move on. I'll stop bothering you. No problem. So, and that's actually how I feel. There's no attachment to that. And the next person is just open for the next person to put in capital.
What are you most optimistic about as we headed towards the end of 2025 and start already thinking about 2026?
I see. Yeah, I feel a lot of hope right now. I feel in the last few months, I feel like energies have been shifting. I feel like people are more positive, are more hopeful. I feel like people are doing different things in many different ways. There's a lot more money out there. And, a lot of people have this narrative that there's no money in Canada and there's no money in this. And it's like, okay, if you believe that, then that's what you're going to see. I really believe that. There's a lot of stuff going on in crypto. There's a lot of stuff going on in the real estate market. Like, things are softening here right now. So there's a lot more capital. There's a lot more dry powder. Like gold has gone through the roof.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of things that are like shifting. Whether we want to get like esoteric and global about it, about like really things happening, political stuff going on, affects everything. I feel very hopeful. I feel that, I just feel very light about the future and about things that are coming. And I think things are shifting and I feel them shifting. And I don't know who's going to win the AI race. We were in SF lately and we were talking to an investor and he's like, okay, if you start with you're an AI company, I'm not listening anymore. So it was, back in the day when everyone was like, we're NFT, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, if, now people understand that everybody is using AI to some capacity in their business. They have to. But it's no longer like the lead and no longer thousands and millions are thrown at that. So the real companies are always going to be the ones that prevail. Like we started out in the blockchain world, right? And we're one of, 5 companies left that are still alive since that time that have morphed and evolved. I just feel like there's a lot of talk about real world assets, which is how we started. And so I think people really want the real thing, whatever that is.
Actually, I'm really excited to sort of follow that story. I can't help but want to see the real world asset stuff really come to light. And as you said, you were really early and curious to see how it all catches up, if it catches up, and then how companies, like yourself can start then taking advantage of the technology because you're prepared and you understand it.
Totally. Well, if and when that's ready, we will literally flick a switch because we've built it in that way. We don't use that right now. We don't need to. But when it's ready, we're already prepared.
Yeah.
So
super cool.
Yeah.
Super cool. Laura, I really appreciate this time to catch up with you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming and hanging out with me on the couch.
Yeah, I love the new setup. This is great.
Yes. And I'm feeling, because I'm now able to get out and about more, excited to check out your events as they happen. So I'm going to be following along and rooting you on and definitely tuning into your podcast. So we'll put a link to that in the show notes. Can you tell us the name? Because I don't think we said it.
Yeah, it's called Off Topic on Purpose. So I do end up talking to mostly business owners, but about why they started their company and their purpose, but not just talking about work because that kind of gets a little bit old.
Well, everyone, please do check out Laura and follow where you can and check out the show notes. And thank you so much for tuning in to Canada Now. I'm so excited to be talking to thoughtful Canadian builders who are like really in the trenches, really doing the things, pivoting and coming out on the other side with like good advice, good stories, and building things that really have an impact abroad, but also here at home in Canada. So, Laura, thank you so much for being here. And thank you to everybody else for listening, and tune in next week, Canada Now.
Yeah. Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you.